Hi.
Yo, what up, dude?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Living the dream. Living the dream.
Yeah?
I'm fired up. This month is Faith Month in the Kinetic Man. And dude, this is one of my favorite months because it's one of those topics that to me there's a huge there's a decision. Like everything we talk about, it's all about choice, right? It's all about making a decision, whether it's if we're talking about intimacy, it's deciding whether or not you want to be the kind of man that, dates your wife, dates your kids, is focused on intimacy. I mean, it's just the level of intentionality is awesome. But for Faith Month, what I love about it is most people, you're like, hey, do you have faith or not? And most people, it's like a yes or no, right? Like, I felt the same way for a long time. And I made an assumption, like I think most of us do, that faith equals religion, and that's I think uh that's the part of it that I love about this month is that faith does not equals religion. And we force dudes and we force ourselves. We've been doing this, right? We do this, we walk through this, and we force the dudes to acknowledge and to dive into what they have faith in. And we're complex human beings, right? Like we don't most of us, I don't know anybody that's just like, yep, I just have faith in Jesus and it drives everything I do, and there's nothing else that you know contests that or challenges that in any way. And it's just, I'm a purely 100% faithful, faith driven, Jesus loving individual. And every single decision I make runs through him. Like, I don't know that guy or gal. I'd love to, but I don't think that that person exists, right? Because none of us are perfect. And it's, there's some things I was reading this morning that really kind of hit that point to me from a different perspective that I hadn't noticed before. And again, that's another part. When you're super intentional, dude, like some of the things that you've potentially done for ages or read forever or whatever, when you're really intentional, you get new you make new observances, right? The things that you notice are very different. And I love that. What do you think?
Yeah, dude, it's interesting. I mean, I had the same thoughts for a long time, really just till recently when we've really done research and dove deeper into this topic of faith. For the longest time, I just thought faith was religion, right? Believing in Jesus. And if I believe in Jesus, I have faith. Um, but I've been tested a lot in that specifically. And we talk a lot about in the Kinetic Man, like matching your actions to your words. And if you look up the definition of faith, just look up the definition in Webster's dictionary. Um, it it doesn't really specifically say like faith in Jesus. Like it's a belief in something that you don't have proof of, right? And that could be a lot of things. And when you dive into that, there's a lot of things that I have faith in, where my actions meet my words, or vice versa, when my actions don't meet my words, that checks me on a regular basis. I mean, just recently, I'm having to go through a car buying experience. My truck of 16 years with 230,000 miles on it is on its last leg, and um, that means I have to get a new vehicle, and that's going to cost me money. And I could quickly see my bank account dwindling lower than what gives me comfort, right? And if you dive into that, if I've dove into that with you, talking about through this, and like I have a faith in my bank account. Like I have comfort in a certain number that's sitting in that bank account. Um, but I don't know what that's going to do for me, right? I don't have proof that that number in the bank account is what I truly need. And it's an interesting look and diving deep into what we really do have faith in. If you say you have faith in Jesus, like, are your actions really matching that? Like, I don't know. It's a hard question.
It is a hard question, and just a dictionary definition, since you mentioned it, of faith: complete trust or confidence in someone or something, right? And so nowhere in there does it say Christian, Muslim, any religion of any type, and it also doesn't it doesn't say someone specifically. It says something or someone, and it's fascinating to me because as we dive into this, and we're going to do this here. In this episode, I think one of the most powerful things about Faith Month, and one of the most powerful things about of every month that we do, is taking an honest assessment, right? And most, I'd say, faith is one of those topics that, because people tie faith to religion, it becomes a contentious, but just by the nature of saying the word, it becomes somewhat contentious, right? Religion, you don't talk religion and politics. But what I love about it is we take a different angle. We're like, no, no, you have faith in something. Like it doesn't have to be Jesus. It doesn't have to be like I don't personally care what you have faith in, but but acknowledge what it is. Because a lot of people be like, well, I don't believe in God. Okay, cool. That's great. You believe in something. Like, what is it? And you're like, well, I'm agnostic. No, well, okay, that's fine. You're agnostic, but like, where do you draw comfort? What do you have faith that's going to bring you happiness? Like, what do you have faith in that's going to take you to a place that you want to be? What is that place? And those questions too are nothing like if you don't know, that's also a great starting point. Where do you want to be? I don't know. That's not necessarily a faith question per se, but that's a question you should definitely resolve in your mind, right? You should definitely resolve like what is the goal? What do I believe I'm here for? You don't have to believe in God to believe you're here for a reason. Even if you're like, you know, uh, completely stoic and nihilist or whatever, just worm food or eventual worm food. Okay, so like, do you live life like that? Like you don't care about anything? Like you don't care about like your kids, your family, like being successful, whatever that means. Like this conversation can go in a lot of places, which I love about it. And but one thing I read this morning as for me, faith, part of what faith entails is my faith in Jesus, and that's a very important thing to me. And so, as we're going through, there's a few dudes in the group, probably 6, 7 guys in the group that have committed to reading the Bible in a year. And when I said earlier, as you're super intentional, you start noticing things you haven't noticed before. Um, I was reading Joshua this morning, specifically chapter 24, and there's a super famous verse. You can see it in people's houses. Like, it's uh commonly tattooed. For me and my house will serve the Lord, right? As for me and my house will serve the Lord. Before that verse, though, I believe that's verse 16. I didn't write it down, but I think that's verse 16. But before that, this really caught my attention this morning, and I loved it. Then I started reading some other verses that just kind of came to mind. I'm like, oh, I think I remember there being other things similar, related to this idea. But Joshua says, "Serve the Lord alone." So like he says that, serve the Lord alone. But if you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve. Like I love that. It's he's saying serve the Lord alone. Like that is what, and then after that, he says, choose today whom you will serve. And then he mentions some other gods that in the lands they went through that people worship. And he goes, serve that guy or that guy. He says, but as for, then that's the context for the verse. He says, but as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Like that's the full context of it, right? But I love that he says, serve the Lord alone. But if you refuse that, then choose something. Choose today whom you will serve. And in my mind, that's also saying acknowledge that you are serving something, whether you're serving yourself, whether you're serving your bank account, whether you're serving something, like you're serving something, dude. The level of self-awareness required to understand what that is and the level of liberty that gives you is pretty powerful. And then I would say, and then from there, you can actually have a good conversation. I would challenge someone, hey, like take a stance, right? Like put your faith, identify what it is you put your faith with, and then we can actually have a viable conversation. Like it's not me saying to you, oh, dude, you should test out my faith. You should test out Jesus. Like you then actually have something besides I just don't believe in that to come back with. Be like, no, I believe in the God of of Bank of America. Like that's the God that I believe in, and here's why. Like make a critical argument. You know what I mean? Like have something that you take a stance on. Don't just always argue about the things you don't believe in. Because today that's so common. Oh, that's stupid. That's dumb. I don't believe. Okay, cool. Take a stance. Like offer something. And not only offer it for me, like to have like a great conversation, argument, whatever. It's not for me. It's for you. Like know what you stand for. Like at least have something that you firmly plant yourself on, and you now can have a purpose for your life to drive towards. Otherwise, you're always just you're almost like proving a negative. Well, I don't believe in that or this. Well, that's bad. And that's kind of good. No, dude. Like what is it? Choose. And again, that's one thing I love about TKM is we force ourselves to make choices. And in those choices, you define your priorities. And in those priorities, you define a purpose. And in that purpose, you can define a calling. And in that calling, you can live a full life, right? And I just made that up. So like you can copyright that or whatever. Don't use it for 2 weeks. Maybe write it down.
I'll
I don't know.
I'll quote it. I'll hashtag it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll
I
put
won't
it
be able
on
to because I don't remember. I
I'll put
won't
it on the
remember. But
Twitters.
but the bottom line is like, dude, it's exciting to take a stance. It's exciting to be on a side, and it's exciting to be able to critically think and defend that thing. And then the best part about it is if you get to a place where you're like, you know what, that doesn't fully serve me, then you can change. And that's the beauty of it. Not that you're so hard line, no, this is right and this is who I am. No, dude, like a true mark of maturity is that you can. I read something yesterday. It was a quote, and it said something along the lines of the immature man will find a cause to die for. The mature man is humble enough to find a cause to live for. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And when you get to that point, you can be like, all right, dude, like I want to live for this thing. I choose to live for this thing so life doesn't happen to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. I was I, I went to a church with my cousin this weekend, Casey. He's a Kinetic Man, and his son decided to be baptized. So we went to go watch his son be baptized, which was awesome. And it brought me so much joy to be a part of that, to watch it, and just to be invited there to see that. It's really cool to watch a Kinetic Man just lead his family well. And interestingly enough, the pastor, the message was on a similar topic. He was speaking from Romans chapter 1, verse 16, talking about Paul. Um, and Paul wrote a letter, and in it he says, I'm just going to quote it. He says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes." And this idea of not being ashamed of your faith. In verse 17, it says, "The righteous will live by faith. The righteous will live by faith." He says, "I am not ashamed of the gospel," which was very countercultural at the time, right? And you could maybe argue that we might be in a similar position. Granted, we're not sitting in a prison for our beliefs and for our faith, but there's a lot of doubters, of haters, of people that aren't believers, um, and if you think about your faith and living by your faith and being unashamed of your faith, um, do you really act that out? Do you really are you unashamed? Are you not afraid to stand up for what you believe in? Like you were talking about. Are you not afraid to um, pray at lunch in a public setting at a restaurant? Are you not afraid to be on display for Jesus? Are you not afraid to talk about what you believe in? Some say that they have faith in Jesus, but there's a lot of them that are unashamed. Like they are ashamed because they're afraid of standing up for what they believe in because it might be um, countercultural. It might be uncomfortable. It might be going against the grain. And we need to stand up. We need to stand up and be unashamed for what we believe in, for having faith in Jesus Christ, because we know the end of the story.
Yeah, dude. I'll tell you one of the scariest verses. Well, he says it a few times. But I guess I should say one of the scariest things that Jesus ever said was, "If anyone is ashamed of me and my message, the Son of Man will be ashamed of that person when he returns in his glory and in the glory of the Father and the holy angels." Like, dude, that one, that I say that often to myself when I'm like say I'm in a setting and things are, happening, whatever. Like, I mean, I'll just use this because I think some guys, this is a thing, right? So, say you and your boys are out drinking and having a good time, and one of the guys is like, I'm sure this happened to you. This happened to me multiple times. Hey, let's go to the strip club. And you're like, that's really not, that's really like contradictory to what I believe is right. And in that moment, you have a choice. You could say, "Hey, man, like this has been fun. Had a couple of drinks, but like that's just not my thing." Like, and why? You give your reason why. If someone's like, "Oh, why not?" Oh, and they start ribbing you and calling you different names. Like, man, as a man of God, like that's just not the choice I want to make. Like, I look at as many naked women as I want to look at, right? Like, and that's not this. That's my wife. That's whatever. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's just not something I'm going to do. I'm not going to compromise when that moment you have a choice, because some of us are like, and it doesn't even have to be that extreme. It could be what's on the radio, right? This happened in my car the other day. The girls, we were taking them to soccer and they put something on. I'm like, nope, this isn't what we're playing. And they were all kind of like, I'm like, this is just not what we're playing. But in that moment, that verse went through my head. Like, am I ashamed to play something? And I let them play their music, whatever. It's not legalistic. The song they played was, I think most of us would be like, no, absolutely not. I was kind of shocked. But that being said, when you're playing Christian music, are you proud? This is one of the things I think about when you're driving. Do you blast like some kind of whatever your music of choice is, rap, rock, whatever, something that's cool, right? Quote unquote cool. And then you roll your windows up and put Christian music on real low. Like, is that what you do? Or do you like, how do you do just simple stuff like that? Like little things like that are a good indicator of whether you're ashamed or not and whether you're willing to take a stance or not, right? Like, are you the guy in church who's raising your hands? Oh, praise Jesus. I love you. And then Monday through Saturday, it's something else. And again, I'm not suggesting that that's the only way to be, or that's the right way for me to be and what I believe. But but if you're just always kind of on cruise control, and I think about friendship. Think about friendship. Like those friends that you may have that are like, dude, I'm totally cool to be your friend, like when we're hanging out. But like in a group, like I don't know. Like I don't really want to acknowledge that we're friends. Like that's not true. That's just there's nothing true about that. You're not in integrity with yourself. If that's the way you're going to be, you just should be honest about that relationship, right? And so Jesus is no different. Like, oh, Jesus, I'm totally cool to like be down with you in church around my church people. That's the only time. Hey, good luck with that. Like that's a scary verse to me. And it's interesting too, and I love this about the Bible. And again, it's not Jesus in Revelation 3:15 and 16, excuse me, it's that famous verse. I think all people who've spent any time in church in the Bible, they hear about this lukewarm thing, right? Well, this is the verse about lukewarm. It says, "I know all the things you do, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish that you were one or the other. But since you are like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth." Now I love that. Again, even if you're listening, you're not, you don't share our faith. That's fine. And I have no judgment for that. That's not for me to judge, right? But I love how Jesus even said, "I wish that you were one or the other. Be hot or cold. Like pick one. Pick one. Be clear. Don't be a fence rider. Like pick a place and stand in that place, defend it. And again, a beautiful thing can happen when you do that. I'm not saying you're like I'm defending this. No. Oftentimes when you defend something, you educate yourself on it. Oh no, I shouldn't say oftentimes. Oftentimes nowadays, people do not take any steps to it. But if you genuinely care about the thing that you say you care about, then you should do some research on it and you'll get a deeper knowledge, a more intimate knowledge of it. And in the course of doing that, oftentimes you will find that it's not like you and I probably we share a faith, but there's probably a lot of things we disagree with in the faith. And I don't think either one of us is less prone to go to heaven. Well, maybe you, if one of us is less than the other. I'm just kidding. But but in all reality, it doesn't mean that you and I agree with everything
Yeah.
and we're going to vote the same way. And then our social our social preferences and the things that we think about right or wrong in the culture, those are not necessarily going to be the same. There's probably some big ones that are going to be the same, but I would say that there's a lot of places that you and I disagree and probably disagree strongly. So it's not that you're all like robots and lemmings and animatrons. It's not that. It's that you dig into it and then you could formulate an opinion. I used to be very different in my views, right? Like, and a great example is when I went to Iraq, I thought about that in a very specific way before I went. And then when I went, saw, observed, did, and came back, I was like, oh, I'm actually 180 from where I was when I went in certain beliefs, right? And I critically thought through this and had to rectify how I felt about it holistically. But it's just fascinating to me as we dig in, as you choose, as you're not, as you choose one or the other, as you choose a place to be, like that's actually very enriching, right? If you do it from a place of humility and you're willing to say, well, I could be wrong too. I could be wrong. And I would say that even about Jesus, about our faith. I could be wrong. I've done that. I've done that thought exercise multiple times. What if I'm wrong about Jesus? I ask myself that all the time. What if I'm wrong? And that is deep in my faith, not made it less. And anybody who argues, oh, you should never question it. If you don't question it, you don't have faith. I'm like, that's foolish. That's foolish. Jesus wouldn't even believe that. And so that's what I love about again, the Bible is applicable to more than just Christians, right? Like he's saying there, hey, make a choice, dude. Make a choice and stick with it until you change it and stick with something better.
I have a I have a quote that I wrote down in my notes from one of our church services. The pastor said, "God doesn't use a sliding scale," and I thought that that was just really powerful, right? Like just to your, the revelations. Like, oh man, there's no sliding scale here. Like you're either in or you're out. Like you're either all in or you're all out. There's no sliding scale here, right? There's no shame in following Jesus. Like be unashamed. Stop stop hiding, right? And it's it makes me think about my kids a lot. And yeah, I think a lot of times we should follow the lead of our children in the faith department because they're all in, man. Like once they're a believer, they're a believer. And it's interesting, slowly over time, right? And it was this way for me. I'm assuming it was for you too, but like as a kid, man, like you're all in. You're all in on something. You believe in it, regardless of ever seeing if it's really true or not. Like that's faith, right? Believing in something where there's no proof that it's actually the case. Take Santa Claus, like, right? But slowly over time, with more cultural input, more social media, friends, outside influences, whatever it is, your faith starts to dwindle a little bit. It did for me, to where like then you're questioning or you're now unashamed or you are I keep on getting that mixed up. Now you're ashamed of being a believer. You get in a group in college or in high school or some social network where not everyone's a believer and you start hiding those thoughts and those ideas and those feelings. You don't pray anymore. You don't tell people that you believe because maybe someone else might think it's not very cool. Slowly over time that dwindles. But if we go back to what our children are right now, like my kids are 9 and 6, man, and they're all in. They're all in on Jesus. They've never seen proof of Jesus, but they believe. They have faith. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and I also want to I forgot his name, William something something. He's it's three names. He's a biblical scholar, and he debates different uh, atheists. Like if you ever watch, I love, I've said it before, I love watching, atheist versus Christian debates, but not like the dumb ones. I like scholarly, like universities put these on and sponsor them as a meaningful discourse and in critical thought. And they're fascinating, and they're civil, which is also amazing. And one thing that is so faith, I agree, faith is something you don't necessarily see, right? But there's a lot of proof in things that there's like, I mean, just a simple kind of trite, like find Jesus's headstone, like as a start. Right? Like, let's just do that, right? Well, there isn't one. But like this guy, gosh, I'll have to look up his name. But one of the arguments he makes, he says, look at the evidence. And this is again critical thought. This is what I'm talking about. Like you make a choice, then you dive in, right? You dig in. So it says, look at the evidence. Okay. Like there's these Jews. There's these Jews, and they're Jewish one day, and they live in the Roman Empire. And by radically changing their belief system, they've not only ostracized themselves, like they've become ostracized not only by the Romans, which Jews were already, were already persecuted, but now you've completely changed your beliefs. And let's not forget that the Romans did the act of the crucifixion. It was a Roman punishment, but it wasn't the Romans that sent Jesus to the cross. It was the Jews, right? It was his people sent him to the cross. And so that's the punishment that is leveled by the culture, um for not for breaking away and believing in things that Jesus said were true, right? Like that's kind of that's your future is. And many of the apostles were they were mercilessly persecuted. Some were also crucified. Some were crucified upside down. Like there's a lot that happened to these guys. But one of the points he makes, he's like, but it's crazy because not only are there eyewitnesses, that's the other thing, right? Like in any courtroom in the world, if you have 500 plus witnesses, firsthand witnesses that said, I saw a dude walking down the street. He was crucified Friday. Something happened over the weekend. And then I saw dude walking. Not somebody told me, like I saw him. And so not only do you have the eyewitnesses of that and firsthand accounts, but you also have this cultural seismic shift within this Jewish community. And that doesn't just happen because it's like a popular new idea on TikTok. Like something significant happened that these guys went from like Jewish to Christian and willing to die, and were absolutely persecuted, and they were willing to do that. And it was a shift in a very short time like that, right? And so he just highlights the point that there's these, as you dig in, there are facts, and there are things, and there are crumbs, just like if you worship your bank account. Like you can look at your bank account and there's a certain amount of money in there, and you can extrapolate where it will be in 3 years because this is what I do and this is how much I make and I save and these are my rates. It's not all devoid of data, but there is a point where you have to put faith in it to say, I believe this is going to continue on. I believe nothing's going to happen to this to change it. And that comes with more and more data points, right? More and more data, more and more truth. But it also requires you to be self-aware that you have faith in that thing and to take a stance. And that's a great place to have a conversation. Not just this, oh, Trump said it, so I believe it. Oh, wait, no, Biden said this other thing, so now I'm fully on that. No, like, what does the data say? It's okay if you are. Like, have something more than emotion and somebody telling you what to feel, to do it and take a stance so that, and if you choose, say you don't choose Jesus and say it just happens that Jesus is real, and at the end you made a choice, well, you made a choice, right? But don't be spit out, dude. I don't, who wants to be spit out like warm water or lukewarm water? Like this is gross. But at the end of the day, dude, that again, back to faith month, you can't have a deep conversation like this with multiple dudes and come out of it less self-aware or less equipped and less armed to make a decision and make a choice, which is very, very empowering. It's much more empowering to say, I do not believe in God because XYZ, and this is the path I'm taking. That's very empowering. Instead of just like, oh, yeah, Jesus, that doesn't make sense. Okay, cool. I agree. I agree. Jesus doesn't make sense, but I have faith that he is who he said he was because of this evidence, right? And the same is true if you choose Jesus or whatever it is you choose. But for me, for to choose Jesus every day and get deeper in that knowledge is also extremely empowering. I couldn't imagine another way at this point. It would be a significant departure of who I am as a person and my identity to not continue down this path. And that's the same way I feel about as being a dad, as being a husband, as being a friend, the way I feel towards my finances, my intimacy, right? Fun, the way I do fun. All these things I'm making very, very big decisions on, taking a stance and then doing something about it. And that's who I'm becoming, right?
Yeah, man. What was there's a question that I don't have my notes in front of me from our TKM Reflections call. There was a question that you asked to the group about having faith in your bank account. Do you remember what it was? It was something along the lines of like what's the
Yeah,
number?
it was just because the bank account's such a good one because a lot of people don't realize how much again, to include you in the conversation we had and to include
Yeah.
me, right? To include me also, like I'm not pointing a finger at you, I'm pointing it back at me because a lot of the things I think about are can TKM generate the income that to take care of our families? Can this real estate stuff create the income? Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm asking the same questions and I was forced to ask myself, am I in integrity with myself? Do I believe in Jesus and his providence and him and God's providing? Or do I believe in David and USAA and the money in my account? But the question was because that's such a very it's such a real part of our lives. It just is the idea of just stop and for a moment just consider, excuse me, just think about your bank account, right? Just think about your bank account and then start digging from there. Like, okay, well, what does that make you feel? Like just that one question. Like you don't even have to, there's no prompt to it, right? Just think about your bank account, like this moment. And what is the emotion that immediately is elicited? And like start digging into that.
Is it comfort? Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Is it happiness? Is it joy? Is it pride? There's a lot of emotions when you just like think about the money in your bank. And what does that do for you? Do you have faith in that? Is that bank account going to create a life of eternity? Is that bank account going to make you happy? Is that bank account going to um, provide for everything that you want? Is there security in that? Is there surety in that? All
It's powerful, man.
all powerful stuff, right?
It's good. And it also, as somebody who professes to be a believer, like that challenges me. Like I think about my bank account. I'm like, hmm, like, do I really trust God? Do
Yeah.
I really trust God to to be in this too? Like, do I really? And dude, like that's a hard question, man. It's a hard question because I'd like to say yes. And I have proof, dude. Like God has taken care of so many needs. Like you and I have so many examples where I'm not suggesting that God's like all about money and he's a genie in the bottle, right? But you and I have been in some interesting situations where like, dude, we need funding like tomorrow
Yeah.
or things are going to go really weird in our business. Like we really need this. And then like the money appears, right? Someone's like, "Hey, dude, I just thought about you guys. I want to invest." You're like, "Oh, wow. Oh, you just thought about us? That's really weird." Thank you, Jesus. But again, it forces deeper questions, right? And that's the whole point of this. If there's anything to take away from, I think TKM, like just digging down, it's dude, understand where you're at, aka self-awareness, right? Understand where you're at, understand where you want to be, and identify the gap and take action to close it. That's it in all these areas. And you could do that anywhere. What kind of husband do I want to be? Like, because most people are like very aspirational. I want to be this husband. Okay, cool. Like, where are you? Like, we ask men all the time, hey, like, are you happy where you're at? Yeah, yeah, I'm good. Are you really? Like, how about in this area? How about in this area? How about in this area? And I'm not trying to make you feel bad about yourself, but do you want to be better? Of course I do. Okay, are you want to do something about it? Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. I'll start going to the gym tomorrow. Cool. All right. Well, let me know. I'll be here. It's just one of the, it's just those things. It's that's really what it boils down to, right? Like, do you desire, like I was journaling today, man, and it just hit me. I was like, God, help me to truly live every day like it's my last. Like, what kind of life would I live if I poured in every day into my relationships? If I just showed up like hard, like I might die tomorrow. Because I might die tomorrow. But like if I showed up hard, I don't even know what that kind of life would look like, dude. But it'd be pretty dope. And so that's a desire. Like it just hit me this morning, like just continue to hit me. And one last verse, that you and I have talked about this verse in the past quite a bit. But again, going with that idea of, putting your faith, whatever it is, in action and like living a life of purpose. James 1:22, but don't just listen to God's word. You must do what it says. Otherwise, you are only fooling yourself. And if it's God's words not your jam, then replace it with something else, right? But don't just listen to your inner voice on the kind of dad you want to be. Do it. Do what that voice says. Otherwise, you're only fooling yourself. What kind of husband do you want to be? What kind of friend, right? And your bank account. There's nothing wrong with that. How generous do I want to be? Do I even know how much I give? The plate comes by to give $1. What's that? Like 0.0001% of your income? Like, I don't know. Like, do you want to be at 10%? Do you want to be 5? Just be intentional, dude. Name it, claim it, own it, right? And get after it.
The last thing that I'm gonna one up you on another verse because it just came to mind, or verses, multiple verses. Verse I is it
Versace.
multiple verses? Versailles.
French. It's French.
It's French.
Versailles.
Um, I was I've had just back to this faith conversation, faith in bank account, faith in money, in my new car buying experience, and not seeing the money that I want to see in my bank account, and having little faith. There's this section in Matthew that talks about worrying, and if you truly have faith in something, you're nearly not gonna you shouldn't have anxiety over it. You shouldn't be worried about it. And Jesus says, "Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?" That's so powerful, man. Like, stop worrying about your bank account. Stop worrying about the clothes. Aren't you more important than the birds? Like, I feed them, I provide for them. Like,
What
you're
does it say?
my,
Doesn't say something about Solomon and all his glory
yeah, I
didn't
can continue.
wasn't as beautiful as the flowers of the field that are here today and gone tomorrow, something like that.
Yep.
I think it culminates in saying, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough worries of its own." Right?
Therefore,
Like,
do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself.
yeah,
Each day has enough trouble of its own.
yeah, dude. If we really live like that, and again, we're not like you'll never hear us being like the Christian guys that are like, "Hey, Jesus, take the wheel, and I'm
Yeah.
just gonna sit back." Like, what? I'm not going to do anything. What is God's will for me? I'm going to sit here until he makes it clear. Like, we're not those guys, dude. Like, I'm more the guy that, hey, Jesus can't steer a parked car, right? Like, you got to be in motion and he will guide your path. He'll guide you on your path, right? As you're going. It's this, I was talking to Russ, he's in our group, and he was talking about, when they were doing wait on the Lord. That's what he said. He's got a coach, and his coach is a pastor, and he said, hey, when you look at the Greek, when you look at the original language of wait, it's not a passive exercise. It's almost like waiting a table, like wait on the Lord. Like, Lord, I'm here. Like, do you need anything? Can I bring you some water? Do you want a steak? Is that well done? Is that what I mean? Like, it's waiting on the Lord. It's an active waiting. It's moving forward. It's doing something, right? So, like, I'm not gonna say, God, I just bought this truck I can't afford, and I'm not really willing to work for it, but you will provide.
Yeah.
He may provide. He may provide the bank to take that car, and then you
Repo
get a
it.
note on a cheaper car. Like, that may be the providence and the learning and the lesson in it. Not for you, but but it's an interesting idea that waiting is an active activity. It's not a passive activity. And God requires, what's that? I love that quote. It's um without him you can't, without him I can't, without me he won't, or something. I think that's what it is, right? Without him I can't, without me he won't. Like, I got to do something, man. Like, I got to be willing to get out and do it unashamedly. And again, man, it's there's a lot of action, dude. It's action, action, action. But it's action with knowledge, it's action with faith, it's understanding who we are, where we place that, and then doing something about it, dude. And so I appreciate you one upping me, but I will say you contributed, I think you contributed like one verse. I think I did like three or four. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. I mean, it's
Whatever,
not a
dude.
competition. It's not a competition.
Right.
But like, I think I won. Just kidding.
You have
Jesus loves
more
you.
faith if you can provide more Bible verses on a podcast.
It's true. Yeah. The more faith you have is completely demonstrated by the number. Like, I should have simply spoken in Bible verses, but I don't know that many, which is
Yeah. There's a lot of verses.
a lot of verses. A
A
lot of
lot of
verses. Yeah.
versi.
A
Ver,
lot of verses.
versus eyes.
Verses. A lot of verses.
Hey, let's finish this one with just a couple questions that we ask inside the Kinetic Man. Um, One is just define faith for you. Like, what does faith mean to you? We recommend looking it up in the dictionary, but then what does success look like to you for your faith? And what is your faith in? And be honest with yourself. Be honest with, like, do you do you have faith in your bank account? Do you have faith in your title? Do you have faith in your social media feed and the number of likes that you receive? Do you have faith in Jesus? Like, what do you have faith in? Ask those questions and, like, maybe take some time and journal on it. Write some stuff down. David, what other questions should we ask?
Yeah. Another one is, um, it goes back to tying it beyond words, right? So there's a statement. I mean, we truly believe in TKM, and you and I fully embrace the fact that everybody has faith in something. Unequivocally, everybody has faith in something. And the question in that is, have you ever considered what that is? Like you just said, right? But but don't just consider it from a words and a thought exercise. Like, no kidding. Like, take an assessment of your life. Like, take an assessment of the actions that you take. Take an assessment of the thoughts that you have and what they're geared towards. And then, like, that'll be a really good indicator. Oh, you know what? I have faith in, man, I really put a lot of reliance on my spouse to build me up as a man. Like, her words, I put a lot of faith in her words and her being here. Well, and again, do that thought exercise. What happens if that goes away? You have no control over your spouse. No control. So what happens if that goes away? One way or the other. Like, what happens to you? Did you put a lot of faith in that relationship to, at the expense of other things? Not that you shouldn't put faith in a relationship, but what am I? Who am I in the context of that? So that's something deep to consider. And looking at, no kidding, taking a an inventory of your actions, and then some of the other ones that are just that kind of get you to get the brain going. When was that faith instrumental in something that is a perceived success or joy? And again, that conversation could take you down so many paths. Like, well, what does success even mean? What is joy? I don't know. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like to me? And did faith play a part in that? Right. So all these things I mean, again, these are lifelong journeys, man. Like, there's not every time we do this with another group of men, I'm just blown away by like, oh man, I have so much. I've grown. It's grace and gratitude. I give a gratitude for where I was and where I'm now because that's been a blessing. And then grace, I take a look at where I was and where I'm now, and I give myself grace too. I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
I'm not nearly where I want to be. And that adds clarity, right? Adds clarity. Okay, but I can get better. What does better look like? Here's the next step. Here's the next 10 steps, but I'm gonna break it down. Here's the next one step to get to that 10th step. There's a lot of encouragement in that. And then share it. Stu, like I failed at this, and this. Like, dude, I've totally changed my morning routine, right? With my kids because of some of the conversations we've had. And every morning, and I'm wondering, I'm like, man, he's gonna get too big? But dude, Noah's on my shoulders every single morning. He's not. He woke up this morning super grumpy. I'm like snuggling his armpits. He's like, Dad, he's so mad. He's such a grump. I'm like doing it on my shoulders now. He's like, yeah, right. And then I run down the stairs. But like, dude, he's getting bigger. He's gonna get hit. Like, when is it gonna stop? Like, is he gonna be 15 and I'm still trying to run down the stairs? But that's a goal of mine. When he's 15, what's that? He's 7, so 8. So I'll be 52 years old. Dude, if I'm running down the stairs at a 52 years old with a 15-year-old kid on my
15-year-old.
shoulders, baller, baller.
Hey, try this one day when he's grumpy and wake up. Put on that song "Good Day" by Forrest Frank and just
Just start
start
jamming,
dancing. Just to
start
start a dance
jamming.
party
Yeah,
like 6:30 in the
yeah,
morning to "Good
yeah, I'm gonna
Day."
do that.
Forrest
I'm
Frank,
gonna
look
do
it
that.
up.
I'm gonna do that.
It's fun. Or
Well, giddy up, man.
you can always go to Stuffy Wars. Stuffy Wars.
Stuffy
Those are
wars are
most.
good. Stuffy wars are good. I'm
Yeah.
afraid my kids will rip their heads off though.
Yeah.
They're gonna regret it in the afternoon. Dude, I love this. Again, I get excited about these topics because not only that, but we've seen guys everything from just acknowledging where they're at and growing profoundly and just through the acknowledgement of this conversation and where they have faith specifically to guys like straight up coming to Christ, meaning like, man, I tested my way. I tested my way. I tested your way, and your way wins. What now? Well, dude, it's not my way. It's Jesus's way.
It's Jesus' way.
And like this is the path that a number of the guys have gone on, and I'm just ecstatic to see that growth. So it's been awesome, man. It's been awesome.
Hey, last thing I want to leave a resource. There is one of our favorite authors and podcast hosts, John Mark Comer. He wrote a book recently. And it's called Practicing the Way. If
Good
you're
book.
the book, yeah. And if you're on the fence about whether you believe or not, check it out. Give it a read. Practicing the Way. Be more like Jesus. Be with Jesus. It's a good read.
Yep.
Giddy up.
Follow on. Check us out. You can go to www.thekineticman / sign up. If you want to there's a reflections is what it's called, an offering that we give where we just have these kind of conversations, right? We take our 9 topics and we just have these kind of conversations once a month. And dudes, man, I tell you, it has been absolutely incredible getting the insights from some guys that I've not known personally very well, and just hearing their perspectives has rocked my world. Even just once a month with these guys, once a month it absolutely challenges me from that call for the rest of the month to do something. So Check us out.
Love it, dude. Good topic. See ya.
See ya.